This is one of the best and most affordable film scanning light sources that I've ever used. Welcome to the Visual Center. I'm Trent. In my last video of this series, I built a camera stand for my new custom film scanning setup. Now, it's been a while since I've worked on this project. There's been a lot going on. You may have noticed that I moved to a new studio. I even grew a beard within that time. But anyways, in this video, today's video, I'll be building what I've come up with for a light source for my film scanning rig. And hopefully it works. I'm pretty sure it will. It will. It might need some refining, but it should work. So if you're watching this video, you probably have some interest in scanning analog film. And if you've looked into using a camera to scan film, you've probably noticed something that I have also noticed. High quality light sources for camera film scanning are way too expensive. Look at some of these prices. Way too much. Buying and processing film is already expensive. And I didn't want to spend as much as some of those prices I just showed. But between you and me, I may have spent just as much as some of those other options building this thing. But I do think that my solution is better in some ways than what's currently available on the market. Now, in the near future, I know someone will make a high quality knockoff of the more expensive light sources. Someone always does, but until then, I'm going to build this and use it. Now, I'll do a cost breakdown at the end of this video, which will also include a materials list, which I'll put in the video description in case you want to build your own. So stick around to the end to see that breakdown. Now, I've been referring to my light source as a high quality light source. And there are a few reasons why this light source needs to be high quality when scanning film as opposed to just any random light. The first consideration is the amount or quantity of the light needed for scanning film. I want to make sure that I have the light source that provides me with a sufficient amount of light for scanning film. And along with this consideration, I want to control where the amount of light travels. This will allow me to better be able to mask the light source, preventing light from bleeding around the edges of the film. Now, this control has a bit more to do with my film holders. I'll actually be making a future video where I go over the various film holders I'll be testing. So be sure to subscribe and watch that video coming up. So I need a light source that provides me with a sufficient amount of light and some control over the direction of where that light travels. Now next, I need a source of light that will provide me with even illumination across the entire light source. If my illumination is not even, I'll get banding or vignetting on my scans. These images you're seeing now on the screen show what it looks like. See these darker areas across these images or around the edges? This is due to uneven illumination. Now, one of the ways to prevent this from happening is to place my light source behind a diffusion panel. This panel will, just as the name indicates, diffuse the light, scattering and hopefully producing more even illumination. The distance between the diffusion panel and the light source will play an important role. If my light source is too close, there will be uneven illumination, like this. See how the individual LED components disappear as I move this diffusion panel further away? Now, one of the drawbacks of moving away from a light source is that the further away I go, I will start to diminish the quantity or the amount of light. So there needs to be a fine balance between these first two considerations. Have my diffusion panel close enough to get the amount of light I need, but then far enough away to evenly illuminate the entire surface. The next consideration is something called CRI, or Color Rendering Index. This refers to the ability of the artificial light source to reproduce a similar wavelength of light as natural daylight. Now, this fuller spectrum of light is important because the color of objects viewed within a low CRI light source look faded, dull, or more importantly, inaccurate. And accuracy is something I need when I'm scanning film. Now, here are two clips filmed with different CRI rated light sources. Both of these light sources have the same color temperature or white balance. I've even used a color checker chart to ensure color temperatures are similar. The scene on the left was lit with a light source that has a CRI of 90 or 92. And the image on the right was lit with a light source that has a CRI of 99. Now, looking at these images, you can see that the color rendering index of a light source plays a critical role in reproducing accurate colors. So I need a light source that has a high CRI number. Now, there are a few more considerations, including color channel separation and collimated light versus diffused light. But these are a bit more advanced and something I may address if I don't get the results I'm looking for with this light source. Now let's take a look at what I've bought in order to build this film scanning light source. First, we have this, an Apollo portable light box. I'll be using this as the main structure or body of my light source. I'll be replacing the electrical wiring and the fluorescence with LEDs. Now this is actually pretty important, as come to find out there was a recall on these light boxes back in 2000. Apparently there was a problem with loose wiring. I bought mine on eBay for $17.50 USD. Now next to LEDs, I purchased these LED modules from a company called Waveform lighting. They make great products. I've used a couple of their lights in other projects. In fact, I use their light source for print proofing. Watch for a future upcoming video about building a DIY print proofing booth utilizing their lights. Now I purchased the Absolute Series LED linear module. They have a CRI of 99, which is perfect for this project and some of the highest rated CRI light sources I could find. Now the Waveform website actually also has this pretty cool comparison of spectrums of various lights with different CRIs. See how close some of their lights replicate full daylight spectrum? Now I also purchased this DC power supply and a female DC barrel jack plug adapter from Waveform. I'll also be using some wire to connect the LED modules and some mounting tape to hold the LEDs in the light box. Now first I need to start by disassembling this original light box. Alright, so to start this process I need to remove this diffusion panel here at the top. So loosen these 4 screws to loosen those brackets and pull that diffusion panel out to the side. And you can see here the fluorescent bulb and its reflector there. Remove those and you see the wiring. That wiring was the issue with the recall. That wiring is loose and I guess sparking or starting fires. Now here I'm drilling out the rivets that hold in the brackets for the fluorescent bulb. I drill those out and remove those components from the inside. And then these rivets are holding in, I believe it's the fluorescent ballast there, that controls the fluorescent light. Drill out those rivets. And that will allow me to remove the rest of the wiring inside that old light box. And this is all pretty easy. Now in the future I'm probably going to replace that plug to turn the unit on and off. Now I just plug in or unplug to control the power to the unit. Now this little connection point here, this proved the most difficult part of the disassembly. I don't know what this is or how it was installed, but it's fairly difficult to get out. So it took a lot of different efforts, cutting the wire, stripping the wire, pulling it out, and then kind of squeezing that little plastic connector piece to finally get it out. So after cleaning up, now I have a clean light box frame to use to build my light box. And there you go. All right, that was a bit more difficult than I was expecting. Now I'm going to try to create a seamless connection point for the power supply here where the original one was. Now I'm going to be using a hot glue gun to mount the adapter for the power supply. Now if this seems like a good connection point, I'm going to mount it more permanently later on. Now let's first test the LEDs inside the light box. I'll need to cut and strip a bunch of wire and attach it to the terminal blocks. Alright, so these are the LED modules that I purchased from Waveform Lighting. And what I need to do is take them out of this bag and actually break them apart. And this allows me to actually space them out as much as I need. Now there's a little dry fit to make sure they would fit correctly. And here I'm actually cutting to length a bunch of negative wires, and then I'll do red, use that for the positive. And those terminal blocks you see there on either end of those LED modules are pretty good. Actually, if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, the end of those modules down there, one of the terminal blocks actually already broke. So in the future, I'm thinking about removing those and actually soldering on all these wires to make it a little bit more permanent. Now here I've stripped a bit of the wire back, and I will twist that copper wire to make sure it stays together and just release the terminal block and slide that wire in. These terminal blocks are easier, but like I've demonstrated, they've already broken. So they're just not very sturdy. So I'll put the positive and negative lead in for the plug adapter, and then I'll finish off here by adding the positives for each connection point for the terminals. Here's the DC plug adapter. There, screw those into place, and now I'm finished. So that's the wiring for how the LED modules will be placed inside the light box. All right, now let's plug it in and turn it on for the first time. Whoa, oof, that is bright. All of the panels, all the LEDs seem to be working. So let's take a look at it underneath the diffusion panel here. That looks great. All right, now I'm going to adhere these LED modules into the Lightbox and attach the DC plug to the Lightbox frame as well. And then I'm going to close everything up and we'll see how it looks. Here, obviously I'm pretty happy with those results. All of the LEDs are working. Now first I'm going to unplug the modules just to be safe, since I don't want them to be hot as I'm installing them into the Lightbox itself. So here I'm actually going to flip over all the modules, and I'm going to apply double-sided tape to the back of the modules. Now this is going to serve two purposes. It's easy to install, and in the future if I wanted to add a module or have to move some of the modules, that double-sided tape should provide me the ability to do that. So here I kind of do a dry fit and then start removing the backing of that double-sided tape to lay down each module individually. Now you can see that the wiring in there is a little too long. That's something I'm going to also probably do in the future, is cut that wiring down and then solder instead of using those terminal blocks to each module. Now here I'm trying to figure out how to install the DC plug adapter. Those wires are way too long, so I need to shorten those down. It's hard to work in that tight little space there, but I was able to eventually get them in, and then now I hot glued that DC plug adapter to the exterior frame and confirmed that it worked, and then just replaced that diffusion panel, and the Lightbox is complete. It works. And there you go. That's the finished Lightbox. All right. There we go. My new LED camera film scanning light source is now built. Let's take a look at it. Now I set out to build a high quality LED light source to be used for digital camera film scanning. It needed to produce a lot of diffuse light and have a high CRI number. Now this retrofitted panel fulfills those parameters. Now an important consideration: how much did I spend on this thing? First, as I previously mentioned, I bought the Apollo portable light box for $17.50 USD. Next, the LED modules from Waveform, $159 USD. These were expensive, but as I demonstrated, the quality of the light is important. The DC power supply, $59 USD. This is something that I'm confident I could have found cheaper somewhere else online. Now also, the female DC barrel jack plug adapters, $8.95. Again, something I think I could have found cheaper online elsewhere. Electrical wire, probably about 1 to 2 USD worth of wire. The mounting tape, 10 USD. In total, I spent about 257 USD. Now, one big way to save a bit of money would have been to purchase cheaper LEDs. Maybe something with a CRI of 95 instead of 99. The Waveform site does list a few less expensive options which produce a 95 CRI rated light. Now, the way I see it, this is a pretty good investment I would make again. I have a high quality light source that's big enough to use when scanning large format film. In fact, the surface of the light box measures 11.5 inches by 18 inches. I should be able to scan 8 by 10 size film. Now, if I bought a film scanning specific 8 by 10 size light source with a CRI of 99, it would have cost me $2,000. There's no way I'm going to be paying that much. Now, I'll be testing and using this light source in future videos. It may need some tweaking, but I think it's mostly there. I'll probably make a follow-up video after the scanning rig is up and running. Now, my next video for this camera film scanning setup series will be all about lenses. You won't want to miss it, as I've got some amazing alternatives to what most of the film scanning community is recommending. So be sure to subscribe and follow along. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.